Welcome back to Family Built Outdoors. Today I'm going to introduce you to our new project. This is my son Colin's Jeep. It's a 94 XJ we picked up for $800. It's got a good drivetrain, a lot of new parts. So we're going to end up building this as a budget rock crawler. And today we're going to put a DIY lift kit on it with 3-inch lift blocks in the rear, and then I'm going to build coil buckets or coil spacers for the front, and we're going to throw some tubular control arms on the lower that I had from a TJ that I had built. So let's get to it. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is secure the vehicle on jack stands. You want to go right in line with the leaf spring bolt and let the suspension droop out, because we're going to have it loose to put the 3-inch blocks in it. So after you get the vehicle secured on jack stands, go ahead and remove the tires. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is go ahead and remove the U-bolts here. And we're going to cut this off here because this bolt won't come out for the rear sway bar. And the mount's gone right here. So we're going to go ahead and do a rear sway bar delete, because to be honest, these pencil thin sway bars don't really do a whole lot. And to break these loose, you may have to get all the mud from around them, and you may have to use a cheater bar to get them broke loose, and then you can run them out with an impact gun. So for right now, I'm going to cut this here, and then I can get to all the nuts for the U-bolts off. Alright, so now we got everything out of the way, and now we can start taking the bolts off. Alright, so the parts we're using, they're Sure-Bilt 3-inch aluminum lift or lower block kits. They'll come with your block and your wedge for correcting your pinion angle. And then I bought the Sure-Bilt 9 1/4 by 2 5/8. This will work for the Chrysler 8 1/4. I'm not sure if you got a Dana 35 or 44, which one that would take, but this is what we're using. Everything together was a little over $100. Alright, so this is what it should look like after you get the new U-bolts in the block. This wedge, it'll be thicker in the back than it is in the front, and that helps correct your pinion angle. So these are what my coil bucket extensions look like. It's a 3-inch tube, and this is 5 inches on the flat stock. Just weld it all the way around like so, and then once they cool off, and we go to put them in, we're going to have a rod that sticks down through the center of the coil that your bump stop is going to mount to. I had told you before that we were going to use the Sure-Bilt U-bolt kit. Do not buy these for anything. So here's what the U-bolt is supposed to look like. Well, as I went to torque them down onto the vehicle, 54 foot-pounds snapped it clean. I wouldn't buy these for a trailer, vehicle, especially an off-road vehicle. Do not buy these, guys. So what I ended up replacing the Sure-Bilt ones with, there's a company in our town that'll actually make U-bolts for you. So I ended up getting these made. They're a little bit longer. They're a 1/2 inch instead of 7/16. So they should be a lot better. The torque spec on a 1/2 inch grade 5 bolt is 57 foot-pounds. So make sure not to over torque them. And this is what they'll look like installed. So what you want to do is run these down with a 3/8 wrench first, and then we'll cut them off, because where these are longer, you won't be able to fit the socket on there to torque them down. So I'll go ahead and run them down and do this evenly. That way your top plate doesn't lean one way or the other. You want to keep it flat as possible. And once you get tension on it and make sure there's no longer a gap on the U part of the U-bolt where it meets the axle, then you can go ahead and torque it. Alright, so now we're going to go through and make sure they're torqued at 57 foot-pounds. Just remember, do not over torque these. Alright, so now we're going to work on getting everything dropped down to where we can put the coil buckets that I made, or the coil spacers. You're going to have to take your shock loose at the top or bottom. That way it'll let it hang down farther. Your sway bar link. And that should be all you need to do to let it drop down enough. So, on this Jeep, the sway bar is 5/8 nut on top of the link. You'll probably have to take both sides off to get the sway bar to raise. Alright, so the bolt for the top of the shock is down below the master cylinder. So you're going to need to remove your air box, your hose, and everything just to get to the bolt. Alright, so to get this to drop down the way we need it to, we've got to take at least one of these bolts loose, because whenever it goes to drop down, it bottoms out in between your shock mount and your link bar. But in our case, we're going to be replacing the lower link bars with tubular link bars that I had laying around. So we'll go ahead and get these bolts out, and then we will go on to the next step. Alright, so after you get your link bar loose, you'll have to go through and take the mount out for your brake line, or what I'm going to do is go ahead and take the caliper off and let it hang. Alright, so what I've done is I've took the drag link off the Pitman arm. I've got the track bar off on one end, and we have pushed this down to where we pop the spring out. Now you've got a rubber isolator that'll come off the top. This one's in pretty bad shape, so we may not be reusing this one. So what we need to do now is we're going to cut this and weld our new piece on, and this part here with the bump stop, we're going to cut it off and weld it on the other side of the coil spacer I built. Alright, so we've cut this piece off right here. Now what we're going to do is center this on here. This part is actually going to go down in our coil spring. It acts as our bump stop, plus it keeps it from kicking out once you're flexing it out. So we'll go ahead and get this welded, and then we'll go through and clean this up. And this is going to weld like this. And it's going to space our coil down 3 inches, which will raise the vehicle 3 inches. So once you get done, it should look something like this. And then we go ahead and clean up the body part of it and get this welded on. Alright, so when you get done, I've just tack welded it here. Then you've got the plate, and then you've got the part where the bump stop is. Go ahead and attach your top shock to the body. Go ahead and put your lower link bar back on, which I've replaced mine with a tubular control arm. Then now you just do the other side and weld everything up, paint it, and bolt check it. So we're flexing it out to see how the suspension does. Which it doesn't have lockers in it yet. It's got quite a bit of flex to it.
That is how you flex this car.
So this is what I was talking about on relocating this from here to here. That way you still have a little slack in your brake line. If you want to see more content like this and other cool Jeep stuff, consider subscribing, share, like this video. And for those that have not seen my son in an earlier video, this is Colin. This is actually his Jeep. We've got a lot of projects left to do on this Jeep. And you know, if you want to watch it, we'll be posting videos as fast as we can.
And until next time, we'll see you out there.